CrimeCon, the world's #1 true crime event, is launching in Glasgow for 2022 on the 10th of September. Get inside the mind of serial killers and psychopaths. Learn from leading criminologists, hear from the families and survivors, meet your favorite true crime podcasters, immerse yourself in forensic evidence, and delve deeper into unsolved crimes. CrimeCon is the ultimate true crime experience, partnered by CBS Reality, the expert-led true crime TV channel. What's Up Doc will be there, so come and join me. Quote What's Up for your special 10% discount off your ticket. Limited tickets are on sale now. For more information, visit crimecon.co.uk or whatsupdocpodcast.com. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of What's Up Doc, the true crime documentary podcast. I am your host, Gemma Delaney, and as always, I'm here to tell you what is up. If you love true crime documentaries, you have come to the right place. You are among friends. This week, I spoke with the hilarious Irish comedian, Simon Hennessy. We talked all about the Tinder Swindler. So, Tinder Swindler went absolutely viral on social media, online. It had such a massive, massive response from people. And that's what we talked about. So we talk all about the documentary itself. And Simon also gave his opinion on the Simon who is the centre of the Tinder Swindler, and his opinion on what he's doing for the good name of Simon's everywhere. And it went a little like this. To this episode of What's Up Doc, the true crime documentary podcast, we welcome Irish comedian, viral social media sensation, Simon Hennessy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, bearing with me as I struggled through a few technical issues before we got started. Would have thought I could have mastered Zoom by now, this many months in, but look, we're here. We made it this far. We'll power through. Anyway, thank you for the very kind intro. Anyway.
Not at all. And yeah, it's like you said, we were talking obviously before we started the interview as well. Technology, great when it works, but it's sometimes quicker doing things the old-fashioned way, as well. It's a bloody nuisance. It's great when it works, and it's great because it makes, means that you can obviously do things online and things like that, rather than me driving halfway across the country maybe to meet you and interview you or whatever. But it can be tiresome sometimes. We were talking about how we're all shouters now as a result of being deaf from using AirPods or earbuds.
Yeah, very much so. But I mean, I was always a shouter, I feel. I think I've always just been a sort of a generally loud, shouty guy. So I'm wondering, have I somehow even broken through that threshold and got even louder? Everyone else around me got louder and evened it out a little bit. I don't know. There's a documentary in there somewhere.
There's a documentary.
Whether or not it constitutes true crime, who's to say? But
it's a crime how deaf we're all gone.
Yeah, we'll plan that off air. Yes.
So myself and Simon obviously had a chit chat about what documentary we were going to cover, and we settled on the Tinder Swindler, which could also be considered a viral sensation, couldn't it, Simon? This one got some serious traction online.
It did, yes. I see a lot of myself in the Tinder Swindler, the documentary, not the man himself. I hate
Simons.
Well, this was actually the first thing I was going to say, because I thought I had a couple of thoughts when you suggested originally the Tinder Swindler. My first thought was that that's not. I was like, oh, because true crime, I was expecting some sort of gruesome, horrific murder and a whole whodunit and the falsely accused kind of anti-hero, and I was like, this is none of those things. But then I was like, no, actually it is. It obviously is crime.
I should probably, explain at this point that I use the term true crime very loosely. I basically do whatever documentaries I like. I want to cover, and I just go, there's crime involved. That's true crime. We'll stick with true crime.
If somebody jaywalks at some point, that's a true crime documentary. Yeah.
But only when I kind of rewatched it in preparation for this episode, I was like, I didn't even think. I was like, you're both Simon. Ah.
Yeah. Well, this was the other thing I was thinking. I was like, is that why I was selected? Because let me say, this guy is not doing. He's doing nothing for the Simon community.
He is doing nothing for the Simon community, which is another thing.
Which is a name with very negative connotations. I mean, if we go back to biblical times, I believe that the Simon of kind of Jesus's posse was particularly kind of undesirable. He was the guy who said that he didn't know Jesus after, kind of treacherous sort of character. A lot of treacherous Simons in pop culture. It's generally Simon is the kind of betrayer.
I never even thought of. Do you know what, Simon? Like, you've probably guessed that the Catholic religion is not alive and well in the Delaney household. I never even thought of that. Yes, that's a really good point, actually.
Yes,
really good
exactly.
Point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Catholic Church is not something I think about often, but the name Simon is something I obsess about endlessly. So, as kind of one of the OGs, the kind of Church Simon is he kind of set the ball rolling in a very negative way.
The Church Simon.
And we're trying our best to kind of turn the ship around, but Tinder Swindler Simon is doing terrible work.
Terrible work
for us Simons.
I'm going to go through all the boring stuff before we get into the good stuff. And by boring stuff, I mean, who's directed it, that kind of thing. It was Felicity Morris who directed this. I don't know if that name is familiar to you at all. She is, or was, I should say, the producer of Don't Fuck with Cats, which we covered actually in last season or the season before of What's Up Doc. When you start getting higher in the seasons, it's harder to remember what season you covered it in, but I've definitely covered it before. And actually the lady out of that, myself and herself, will be appearing at CrimeCon this year. So I am very excited to meet her and pick her brain. But yeah, so Felicity Morris, when I first saw the name, I was like, that sounds kind of familiar. And then I did a little Google and I was like, oh yeah, she produced Don't Fuck with Cats. So yeah. But other than that, she hasn't any other accolades to her name that I would have heard of anyway. But obviously, look, after watching this, a very, very talented woman by all accounts. Who would you say is the intended audience for this? If you had a stab in the dark there, Simon.
Oh, that's a good question. Not Simon's anyway.
Simon community.
Yeah, I'm here with an agenda to kind of clear the names of all of us. I suppose probably people who you would typically consider to be in the dating bracket, people in there, which I guess is like, I don't know, 20 to 35 roughly, which isn't to say, before anyone screams at me for saying, how dare I bar over 35s from dating, anyone can date, but typically I would say those are the people in the dating who mostly comprise the dating community. So I guess they would be most specifically the target audience. But that said, I feel like it's a story that anybody would find interested in, because it's kind of about dating and kind of about online dating and Tinder and that kind of culture, but it's also just as much about I guess crime and catfishing and conning people via the internet, which is not exclusive to people who date. It's kind of something that everybody, it's very real and present for everybody. So accessible enough for most, I'd say.
And do you think then that, you've kind of covered it there. Do you think that is the purpose of the documentary as well? Or is that the message that the director is trying to get across? Is it the dangers of online dating, dating apps, that kind of thing?
I mean, I think that at first glance might be the conclusion that you could draw, but I didn't come away from it feeling that this was a a documentary which was trying to tell me that dating apps are dangerous. I think it was more making the point that, like, you know, there are people who are capable of, with very little kind of, I guess, moral roadblocks, stopping them from using the internet to kind of hoodwink other people into getting what they want. And unfortunately, they, you know, some people are very good at this and are very capable at fooling, you know, people who otherwise seem very smart and aware of what's going on. So I wouldn't say, I mean, the fact that what happened in it kicked off, or at least the two, I guess, protagonists who we followed met the guy in the Tinder Swindler himself on Tinder, means that dating apps was the sort of setup for it. But I wouldn't say that it was specifically saying dating apps are dangerous. I think it was almost more that, like, people are dangerous on the internet.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Isn't that what the door said? Yeah, exactly. I'd agree with you 100%. I don't necessarily think it's a cautionary tale of love online. I think it's just a really interesting story. And I think it was just pot luck that Tinder happened to rhyme with Swindler. And they said, aha, we've got a great hook there in the title straight away.
Yeah, what would they have done if it was, I don't know, the Hinge Stinge? That could have worked.
The
Bumble or Rumbler. No, that doesn't quite track.
I
don't know. We'll circle back to that later in the pod.
You could make up words, but I don't know whether they'd have the same oomph as Swindler. Yeah.
Really... And Tinder is like the I suppose the most well-known dating app, so that kind of played into it as well.
The plenty of fish fucker. I'm trying to think.
We'll figure something out. We'll figure something out.
Exactly. So look, I suppose, had you heard of this story before this documentary?
I hadn't heard of this story.
Either.
Yeah. Not only that, I'm quite glad that you got onto me to with this documentary in mind. Not only because obviously the chance to chat about it and all the rest, but I actually missed. I feel like I'm going to say like a month, maybe 2 months ago, it was like such a craze, and for whatever reason I think I must be busy the week that everyone watched it, and then I didn't watch it originally and just missed the boat there. And then it was only last night actually that I got the chance to sit down and watch it. But no prior
way. You hadn't seen it before at all?
Hadn't seen it before, no.
Simon. Oh, I know. Do you know what? When people tell me that, I'm so envious, because I love that. I love that feeling. It doesn't happen too often anymore, obviously, because this is what I do now. I review documentaries, and specifically true crime documentaries. But I love when somebody comes to me and, says, watch this. And then I watch it, I'm like, that's amazing. It's so good. Yeah. And I think this is probably up there, because, I mean, they've been turfed out in record time now. So the good ones are few and far between. The original ones, not good, original ones are few and far between, I suppose. But look, we digress. What the hell are we talking about? So the who, the what, the where, the when, and the how. This is a story, like you said, about online dating, to a certain degree, the dangers of online dating, but certainly just, that there are bad people out there. We are first introduced to Cecilia, this stunning looking girl from Oslo originally. She's living in London, and I'm going to throw it over to you. What was your first impression of her?
She seemed lovely. Seemed like a romantic but level-headed enough person, I guess. And everything's obviously, the whole thing is framed through the lens of like romance and dating. So that was really what we were talking about most with regards to her. But like, seemed like a fairly smart and clued in person, but someone who was clearly looking for love. Very much so. And that's obviously where things took a turn for poor old Cecilia. Yeah. But no, impression was good.
Yeah. I think like with me anyway, there was like this, and I don't want to be condescending to the girl. Like you said, you can tell she's a smart girl, but there's almost this childlike quality with which she speaks about love. She talks about, it being like in the Disney films and how she was obsessed with Disney as a child and Beauty and the Beast and that concept of, the dark, handsome prince, turned beast living in a castle and, mutually saving each other. She kind of says, he saves her and she saves him. And, she has this very romantic concept of romantic love. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be romantic, but, it is almost childlike. I think there is definitely an innocence there to her. And as you said, she really wants love. And I think that's really obvious. She got an awful lot of flack online. And I know you might have missed this because, like you said, you missed the kind of initial flurry. You didn't watch it. She got an awful lot of stick online. All of the women involved did, but I feel like she got an awful lot of stick online because she meets this guy on Tinder. We're going to fast track the story slightly. Meets this guy on Tinder. He's like, oh, I'm in town. I'm really, really busy businessman, but I'm in town. I'll be here for about 24 hours. Come to where I'm staying. He's staying at the Four Seasons. She feels out of her depth because like this is luxury and she just feels like this isn't who she is as a person. He comes down, meets her. They have a coffee. They just click, connect, whatever. He's saying that he's going to Bulgaria in 24 hours. And he goes, do you want to come? And she got so much shit online because of this. Simon, honest opinion, when you saw that, what did you think?
Honestly, I was like, why not? I mean, I suppose I get it. Like, I guess the whole thing of people being like, that's outrageous. Why the hell would you get on a plane with someone on a first date? And like to a certain extent, yes. I feel like maybe it's there's an element. Well, one thing that has to be factored in is obviously, and they kind of covered this well in the documentary, is that like he, they say what you want about this Simon, clearly not a great guy, but like he was a pro, he knew what he was doing. Absolutely. And did a good job of kind of setting up the facade of extreme wealth within that date.
1000%. Yeah.
And like had a fake Instagram profile and articles and stuff saying that he was the son of a billionaire. So it's like, obviously sons of billionaires can be terrible. And maybe there's there's merit in saying you shouldn't get on a plane with a virtual stranger. But I don't know. The flip side of that is I feel like there's a certain type of person who is like, look, it's a bit of an adventure and might get a great story out of it. And it could be, I don't know, even as I'm saying that, I'm like, yeah, but getting on a plane with a stranger, what things take a turn. That's, I suppose, there is merit in sort of being like, oh, maybe that should have been factored in. I don't know. I guess I'm straddling the fence a little bit here. I know.
I agree with you though, because I feel like in one regard, I really feel like she did, like you said, her due diligence. She Googled him. She saw these articles about his dad being the CEO of LLD Diamonds, and he's the king of diamonds. Like that's what he's known as. Yeah. Like you said, like multi-millionaire, billionaire, and then checked out his socials. Like she did everything that you or I would probably do if we were going on an online date. I do think though, getting onto a plane was like leaving the country with someone.
Yeah, leaving the country is, but I'm like, if you like,
it's a little bit taken, isn't it? I feel a little bit Liam Neeson. Like, do you know what I mean? I instantly, if somebody offered me to go on a plane, a private plane somewhere, I'd be like, definitely been trafficked into the sex industry. You're like, do you know, that'd be my first impression.
Potentially, yes. And I suppose we're kind of veering off into a little bit of a different question here. But fair enough. But I would say this, I mean, if generally speaking, I feel like no one would have that much of an issue or would raise that many eyebrows of like going home with someone after a first date or going back to their hotel or back to their house. Like people 100%. Like if you like someone, it's like, yeah, sure, fire away, go for it. I'm like, it's okay. Obviously going to a different country is a bigger thing, but is it so far removed from the concept of going home with someone because you like them to be like something that you should be blamed for if things pan out the way they have. I don't think
that's the line, isn't it? I suppose that's that I would definitely be like, fucking hell, Cecilia, but like I still don't think we should ever be blaming the victim. Like at the end of the day, she's a victim and he's a fucking pro, and that's the end of it. Like she got torn to shreds online. The poor girl, my heart went out to her because I don't know, like I said from the get-go, I just got this like, I don't know, I have a real soft spot for her. This childlike wonder. She just wants to be in love, God love her. And I can understand how, like, she felt she had done her due diligence. But yeah, I suppose maybe I can see in that regard why people might be judgy online, but I still don't think that gives any excuse. I think, that's always that's a slippery slope going into victim.
Yeah. And the internet is like a cesspool, as we know. So people are going to find a reason to hate on someone for anything. So, it doesn't surprise me. And they did touch on that a little bit, I feel, because obviously the documentary covered how this was a big news story, a big newspaper article. Sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but
no, go for it.
By doing that, they did kind of shine a light on how herself and the other kind of protagonist whose name I forget, but how the two of them got a bit of flack online from people. But it's like, again, look, all that stuff was there online, all the articles about him making him look like totally, which all seemed perfectly legit. And I'm like, anyone who's pointed the finger online, ask themselves, would they have been smart enough to second guess it? I'm not so sure. Yeah,
I'd agree with you there. Like, and then I suppose in the same breath, she kind of reiterates again how he subdued any, fears or whatever that she might have. Like, she talks about how she's on the plane and who's there but his, the mother of his child. So he's already told her he's got like a 2-year-old. He's not with the mother anymore, but like he's over visiting her and she'll be traveling with them, yada, yada, yada. And she's on the plane there reiterating everything he's just said, like, oh, it didn't work out with him, but he's a fantastic father and what a great guy. And like, she's talking about like they're on the plane and they're having the caviar and the champagne. Like it's proper Pretty Woman moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If anything, the red flag, like if anything there, you're not going to think that, this is sort of a fake sort of concept. If anything is going to be a red flag to you, it's like, well, it is kind of weird that I'm meeting the mother of his child on our first. That was what stood out to me, to be honest. I was like, it made sense as part of his con, but like if it was me in that situation, I could sort of see myself going like, well, yeah, you do seem great, but you haven't introduced me to your ex and your child on the first date, so I'll be taking my caviar to go. But no, it was certainly well set up by Simon to fool her.
So things progress. I mean, the relationship progresses quite quickly. She's not seeing a whole lot of him, but like he is in constant communication with her. It's all through WhatsApp, voice notes. He's like checking in, whatever luxurious hotel he's staying in. He's sending her the deets of. She's getting flowers, like not just flowers, like fucking ridiculous big, size of the table bouquets. He flies to Oslo then one time to see her. Do you remember that when she's seeing her parents and she's just like, oh, I miss you. And he flies over for the day. You know what I mean? So he's love bombing her, not just with words, but with actions as well. He's really doing that, that love bombing. And so it does seem to move quite quickly, but then you can kind of understand in her eyes why it is moving quickly. He then asks her to be his girlfriend. And then we kind of see the first little snippet that maybe all is not what it seems. He tells her how dangerous his job is working with his dad, the CEO of LLD Diamonds, because diamonds by their nature are dangerous. People want diamonds. He gets bullets in the mail. He gets, funeral flowers sent to his door. And at that point, then it flips to who you touched on earlier there, kind of our second protagonist, Pernilla. And Pernilla's story, it starts out pretty similar, doesn't it, initially? Like,
It does, yeah. They meet on Tinder as well, isn't it? And then they go on a date. Is there also an international element to that date? Is there a flight
There
to?
is. So he flies her to Amsterdam. He's in
Yeah,
Amsterdam. He flies her over. And again, I feel like, again, a lot of victim blaming online, but I feel like that was nearly his first step in the con. If you trust me enough to fly abroad, you're probably a little bit you know what I mean? In his head, if you're willing to let down the guard for that, then this con is probably going to work on you, because she has to send him her passport details for him to fly her to Amsterdam.
yeah. That one is maybe a little more, because it's one thing
Do you
if
think
someone.
that?
Yeah,
I
think
actually have that here in my notes. I was like, I'm the kind of person who I would probably be more likely to get on a plane and get killed rather than, potential ID fraud behind it. No, I wouldn't go for that now. Isn't it strange?
Yeah, well, it's even more so for me. It's almost a thing of like, if you're so Cecilia's situation was that she had actually was on the date with him,
Yeah,
and was kind of face to face with this person, maybe intoxicated by his presence. And then
fair
it's
point.
the kind of the suggestion of like, oh, well, we go and do this. And then you're in the moment, you're with the person and you're like, oh, well, we've hit it off. We've clicked. Yeah. What the fuck? Let's do it. Whereas if you like the idea of someone who you have literally never met, have only communicated with online, and being like, yeah, I'll fly to see you. I will, because like, there's a lot of steps between that being suggested and seeing that person. There is a lot of admin, of sending your flight details and like packing and like how many pairs of socks will I need?
Yeah.
Should I bring my tongs? Will there be swimming involved? Like there's a lot of moments along the way where you can kind of pause to be like, do you know what?
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I'll just wait until we go for a drink in this city before I go to meet him.
I feel like
in an entirely different country.
My real takeaway from this whole documentary was how unspontaneous I am. I'm like, I would need to know. I'd need to see menus of restaurants we were going to. I would, what kind of footwear do I need to bring? Like, I'd need specifics before I'd commit to anything. So, if anything, it just probably showed me how set in my ways I've become. That there's no way in hell I'd do this. I wouldn't inconvenience myself and go to Amsterdam on a whim, because I'd be like, no, I won't have the right shoes, or it'll be too cold, or is it raining, or you know what I mean? Like,
well, don't be too hard on yourself, because I would say you're probably in the majority. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think most Tinder dates are, intercity, intercountry affairs. Exactly. Purely by dint of the fact that, I think I'm right in saying there's a radius element to it.
Yeah.
How wide are these people setting their Tinder radiuses? If they are meeting and, people who are literally in entirely different countries,
exactly.
You know what
crazy.
I mean? It is bizarre.
But again, in their defense as well, I do get the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just because they're, international girls with fancy names. I get the feeling that they are probably from a socioeconomic background, maybe a little bit more higher up than myself, and maybe are dating kind of richer guys. And therefore, like Pernilla does say that she has dated a diamond guy. She's like, oh no, another diamond guy. And then the interviewer is like, another diamond guy? And she's like, oh yeah, it's the second guy that I've dated. You know what I mean?
But don't they have their own apps? Isn't there like separate, specific apps for these kind of like uber rich?
I would have thought.
I'm like, I'm not, if you are the kind of.
Are they sifting through the dredges?
Yeah. Has Pernilla kind of swiped past like, Brendan and all his GAA mates and various.
No
yes, exactly.
Mel, by the way.
No, of course, great play. I'd gladly fly out there on a date. But is she sifting through all of kind of
you'd have to wonder
the hashtag lads before, in the hope that one diamond billionaire is going to show up? I'm like, I don't know. I could be wrong. I feel like they have their own apps, but anyway, but
Pernilla and Simon, for whatever reason, there's not a romantic connection, but they remain friends. But again, there's been a very similar start to their, friendship relationship that there has been with himself and Cecilia as well. But I noticed, even though they've decided to stay friends, he's still, the way he treats her and the way he prioritizes her, like, you know, she's talking about one day she's having a really bad day and he surprises her and flies, you know, whatever country he's in to whatever country she's in to have a coffee with her, to cheer her up. So there's still this, you know, manipulation, this like, you are my number one priority, whether I'm romantically involved with you or whether you're just a female friend. In the meantime, he's moving in with Cecilia. She's looking for apartments, penthouses. He tells her there's a budget of 15,000. And then, like, this again, because you missed the initial flurry, I don't know if you missed the flurry of memes that were generated by this plot twist. Peter got attacked.
Yeah.
The bodyguard. This sequence of events gave birth to, I'd say, some of the best memes I think I've probably ever seen in my life. And skits, like people doing skits online about it. It was like viral on TikTok. Everyone was taking the piss out of it. So Peter, for people who haven't yet seen it, is his bodyguard, this massive guy, this beast of a guy. He gets attacked. Simon sends pictures of Peter in the back of an ambulance. So he's clearly been attacked. But I suppose, you know, in hindsight, we don't know when this attack took place because he's obviously using this sequence of events. This is his, you know, modus operandi. This is what he uses on women. Peter's been attacked. The reason being these baddies, the bad guys that were sending him the bullets in the mail, the funeral flowers and all that crack, they're looking for Simon. And in trying to get to Simon, they attack Peter. And then for his own safety, his security team have said he can no longer use his cards because they're tracking him based on his cards. And again, she's going out with him. I can't remember exactly, but I think she's at this stage going out with him probably 6 or 7 months. And this is the first time he's looking for money. So do you know what I mean? It's very believable.
Look, I'll say it again. Don't like the guy, but you know, he's got a decent game plan. And it makes a lot of sense that you would fall for it. I did. I mean, I feel like I saw some of the memes and stuff, by the way, but just didn't get them. I sort of scrolled past, and I obviously
I'm going to bombard you with them now, Simon. That's all you're going to see off me for the next.
Please do, yes, because even without having seen them, I found the whole sequence hilarious. I mean, my favorite thing about it was because obviously the way the documentary does it is that they kind of show you the WhatsApp conversations, and this ties into a broader theme that I hope we kind of get into later, which is the way that all of these people, particularly Simon, speak, which was just a source of endless amusement for me. But one of his messages, he was obviously sending through those photos, and I think the first one was just literally just a single word message, just blood. Literally just sent a message saying blood, and then a photo of your man or Peter's head with indeed some blood on it. But it was only when prompted for an explanation that he gave more. And I was like, that is just the most dramatic way of saying this. Like, why waste all these words? You know, forget a picture paints 1,000 words. A word paints 1,000 words. And that word, as Simon identified, is blood. It was incredible. But he obviously launched into this tactic, which totally believable that this person is lavished all this money on. Well, the enemies thing is kind of like, well, like, who exactly are? Maybe you would, one criticism you might say is like, try and get a bit more detail of who the enemies are, because I don't really. Maybe they did, and maybe
I love that we're critiquing his con. You're like, oh, Simon.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not even. Well,
7 out of 10. Like, you need to bump up
the blood WhatsApp was good. I like that flourish, but
nice touch.
but the thing is, maybe he had more detail on the enemies, insofar as we saw on the doc, and maybe they just didn't include this. But it didn't even really seem like either of the gals were. Or at this point, Cecilia was asking for like specific details of who exactly these enemies are. Yeah. She was kind of just being like, oh my God. And maybe if you're bombarded with kind of bloody photos and stuff, you don't have the time to even think about that. But I don't know. I'd be like, just at least give me a give me a couple of names here. Give me someone I can Google to find out who this kind of criminal monster is that's after you. But otherwise, believable enough stuff.
It's a fair point. I mean, in the like, it's all sad, but I suppose this is kind of when it really hits home for you that it's not just a person telling a story. Like, this is somebody's life was actually like seriously affected by this. She's talking about how then, you know, obviously she gives him, she takes out a card, an Amex card, gives it to him. He's using it. He's constantly like maxing out the limit on it because the limit isn't that high, because obviously it's due to her earnings. He then takes her on as employee at LLD Diamonds and like forges what she's earning. Like they're fake pay slips, right? Saying she's earning like the bones of 100,000 a month. So obviously, boom, they increase her credit rating, you know, overnight, she says. And then he's constantly upping it, hounding her for money. And she's saying like how stressed she's getting. And then she talks about how she's driving along in the car and there's like a truck coming towards her. And she's like, will I just drive under the truck? Like, that's how bad it gets. You know, it's all, I feel like it's all fun and games. It's a funny story. And then it gets that and you're like, holy shit, this isn't just a story. This really happened. And this poor girl could have topped herself on the back of this shit.
Yeah.
It gets really, you know, it doesn't. And for me anyway, you know, it was at that part, I was like, what a dick, what an arsehole. Like, he doesn't give a shit. He really doesn't give a shit. So she has, I think, 8 or 9 creditors after her. And it's literally, she says herself, she's either going to kill herself or she has to confess everything because she just doesn't know what to do. So she sits down, she has a meeting with the guys from Amex, and they're like, have you got a picture of this guy? And then they're like, oh yeah, wait, he's done this before. And this is when this is the first time the whole con becomes apparent to her.
Yeah. Which begs the question, by the way, if Amex were happy to increase her credit limit when they got this payslip from Lviv Diamonds or whatever it was, and yet they also simultaneously knew that this guy, Simon Lviv, was someone who, it was obviously known to them, because as you say, she mentions how the Amex guys are like, yeah, we know who this is. It's like, did they, like, you know, would they not have been able to say to her once that fake payslip came through, this, we know about this guy? Anyway, maybe the corporations are the real villain here.
I know where you're coming from. I have worked in call centers before, and I speak from experience when I say, you know, the people who are increasing credit limits probably 5-6 weeks previous did not know what a credit limit was.
Okay.
They're trained in the job at hand. And I mean, like, you're dead right, because that's a complete loophole. Like, that's something that needs to be fixed. It shouldn't be that way. But it is, I know from my own experience, I don't know what it's like working for Amex. I've never worked for that company. I'm not saying I have, but I've worked for other companies that, where credit limits are involved. So I wonder, like, the guys at the top and the people, they're so far removed from each other that I doubt those conversations would even take place. Meanwhile, we have Pernilla getting the Peter's been attacked routine. So he now starts it on her because I guess he's maxed out Cecilia, or he realizes he's maxed out Cecilia. He does that whole routine with Pernilla. She does send him, I think, about 30,000 or thereabout, nowhere near the amount that he got out of Cecilia, but he still does get a fair whack out of her. And then what kind of happens is Cecilia obviously now knows that he's on Amex's list. They're aware of him. So she starts Googling him further than she had before. She finds these articles and then translates them through Google Translate. And they're about him being a fraudster. This fraudster called Simon Hennessy, who has been doing this since his teens. He's from Israel. And she gets in contact with then these investigative journalists who have been tracing this guy and who've done multiple articles on him. They also find Pernilla. So they're now in contact with Cecilia and Pernilla. And the two of them kind of band together. I know I'm going lightning speed through this, but the two of them kind of band together and they do an article with the investigative journalists. And guess who reads it? His other girlfriend, Eileen. It's like, but wait, there's more. So Eileen is this girl who and she's been dating him for 14 months.
Yeah.
This is the thing. She's been dating, and only recently he has started the con on her and started getting the money out of her. So like, this is a very, very seasoned pro. I hate to give him compliments, but he is, right?
And there's a whole team. There's a whole like squad of contributors to this. Yeah. It's not just Simon. We've got obviously famously bloody Peter. We have like a business partner who kind of appears and disappears. The mother of the child who's involved. So like, yeah, he's outsourcing. He's got
he should get a call center.
Oh,
he should get it. I'm telling you.
I'd say he probably does. I'd say he does.
But yeah, Eileen then is like, she's kind of the heroine of this whole story then, really, because she is gutted. But Eileen is a woman after my own heart. She wants revenge. She wants blood. She wants blood, right?
She does.
She lets on to him that she believes him. So she shows him this article that she has read. And he's like, oh, it's all, this is all the bad guys putting this fake publicity out. And she's like, we'll run with this. And she's like, yeah, totally believe you. But obviously, because his con is up, he can no longer get money. So he can't go onto Tinder anymore and con more women. And obviously, Pernilla knows what he is now. Cecilia knows what he is now. They're not going to give him money. Eileen is just like, she knows about the con. So she's like, I have no money to give you. And he's in dire straits. Like, the walls are closing in. He even tries to get plastic surgery to change his appearance.
Yeah, that was
crazy on credit, like, because he has no money. And then she's so clever. She's like, hey, you've got all that designer gear. Why don't you let me take it and I'll flog it for you and then wire you the money? With no intention of wiring him the money. She's going to flog it to recoup the money she's given it. Like, she's a genius. Fair plays to her.
Yeah, no, she definitely had the most get up and go. A touch of the Simons about her as well, to be perfectly honest, because she fought fire with fire.
A touch of the Simons.
I mean,
we're going to make this a thing. We're just going to keep saying it, dropping it into conversation casually.
Yes, although I instantly regret it because it makes it sound like kind of conning people is an inherently Simon trait. But whatever, we in for a penny, in for a pound. But yeah, she flips the script, doesn't she? And she kind of pulls that con, and then ends up getting the barrage of WhatsApps from him, and just endless. And like, this is well, I guess this is as good a time as any to bring up what, maybe not meant to be the main takeaway from the documentary, but one of my big takeaways was just how funny I find, I don't know why, and maybe not everyone agrees, but how funny I find people who are like pretty good at English, like quite good enough to be confident enough to communicate, but they're not quite fluent, and they just have these little mistakes which are just...
It adds a certain je ne sais quoi to the story.
It adds such...
Again, if it was based in Clonmel, I don't feel like we'd have the same graw for it.
No, because in Clonmel, they're not nearly good enough at English to... no. And my apologies to Clonmel. Wonderful part of the world. One of my best friends
from Clonmel, she's going to kill me.
Yes, well, my apologies to her. But and all of them, actually, all of the characters kind of fell into this, except for maybe Cecilia. But some of his messages where oh my God, what was it? He was kind of trying to send sort of threatening things and being like, I guess the message being like, I can make anything happen. But what he writes is, I do the impossible possible. And it's just stuff like this. And then he writes her a letter, kind of, I guess, appealing for her to give money. And they show you a little bit of it. And I can't remember any of the specific quotes, but it's just just riddled with tiny spelling errors here and there, just little grammatical things that are off. Him in his audio notes as well, kind of saying things like. Also in his audio notes, I genuinely am quite interested to know, and I might try and find out whether or not they were the actual audio notes or if it was some kind of automated system, because everything else, they had like videos of him, which obviously the women involved contributed. And that was clearly him and him speaking.
Yeah.
The audio notes, I was like, has someone plugged this into Google Translate and is getting him to speak?
Why do you think auto-tuning is?
Yeah, because it would be like, her saying like, oh, I'll send you the money for this shortly. And then it would just be a little clip of him going, amazing, 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 like 3 times in a row, the exact same. I'm like, what is this? Simon, are you a literal bot? Are you not a real human being at all? Sorry, I know that is all of that is so far removed from what the documentary is about.
I absolutely the same thing. I thought the same thing when watching it, but like I said, I thought it was more like an auto-tuning thing. I was like, has he got aspirations to be like an R&B singer? Is he like send her through? Yeah, it seemed like he was putting it through some kind of an editing software for whatever.
Yeah, like a sort of a Daft Punk vocoder for these audio notes that he was sending. And I was like, God, he's really putting in so much effort to this con.
It's mad. Yeah, no, I thought the very same thing. So no, I totally agree with you there. But yeah, like she kind of recoups some money. She doesn't recoup all of it. Eileen, this is through selling her stuff online. And then he finally kind of says to her, look, he needs her to buy him a plane ticket because he's gonna face the music. So she gets the plane ticket sorted for him and she forwards it on to Interpol and she's like, look, ball's in your court now. This is the flight he's going to be on. This is the airport he's going to be landing into. And they catch him. So the Tinder swindler is finally in handcuffs. But he gets 15 months in Israel, of which he serves 5. And like, this guy is, these 3 women are his, I think, 10th, 11th, 30, we're in the teens at this stage.
Who did he match with in the Israeli judicial system? That's my question.
He was super liked by the judge of the Supreme Court.
Must have been it.
It's crazy. Like, look, I mean, we're not really in any position to judge. We haven't got the best, not that we haven't got the best, but quite a lenient system here in Ireland as well. We definitely incarcerate to rehabilitate, no matter what the crime is, which isn't always right. Like, sometimes life should be life, not always, but sometimes it should. But yeah, he gets out after 5 months, whatever about, like, even 15 months I felt was quite lenient.
Yeah, one thing they did say, which did make a certain amount of sense, is that while obviously there's like a laundry list of crimes and cons that he's pulled, they are spread out over a number of different countries.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think the point they were trying to make was that obviously if he'd done all of them in Israel, then there'd been a lot more they would have been able to charge him with. Yeah. But there were fewer crimes because obviously it was whatever in the UK was, I think, where Cecilia was from, and Pernilla was, I can't remember, somewhere else. So, they were kind of making that point. But yeah, it did seem, having spent the previous hour and a half or however long just kind of detailing all of the crimes, it was a bit mad to see that it was 5 months in the end that he ended up serving before emerging and kind of immediately recuperating the wealth somehow. Just
starting up where he left off. So like the documentary kind of ends, it says he's still living in Israel. He is offering business. He's kind of like a Wolf of Wall Street type character, I'd say, kind of a Jordan Belfort. Like he has gives advice to business people, or at least he has a website giving advice to business people. And I mean, if you look him up online, he's still in Israel. He's still with, I know we didn't even touch on her, but he's still with that Russian model whose name evades me now. Began with a P as well. He started seeing her while he was, he's still seeing her. They're still together. So it nearly seemed like, if she was aware of the fraud, she doesn't care, and she's happy enough to Polina was her name. So he's still with her, still living in Israel. And like, if you look him up online, he's still doing his thing. He's posting videos, whether they're old ones or I don't know, but he seems to still be earning a pretty penny. It's just mad, isn't it? It's mad.
Yeah.
And these women are in debt. These women are in debt probably for the rest of their lives.
Well, that was very, like, that's whatever you want to say about him and how, for better or worse, probably worse, but no publicity is bad publicity, I guess. And in the end, like his is an interesting story. And unfortunately, there's going to be a subset of people, I'm going to say confidently, primarily dudes, who are going to like see him as someone who is like, I've got a lot to learn from this guy, and so that's obviously not particularly nice, but understandable enough. It was kind of the more sobering thing and the more tragic thing was the fact that the three women who were the three who we followed throughout the documentary are all still, as you say, paying off the debts. And I suppose, is that a failure of the legal systems that can't be excused given the circumstances and given the fact that they were victims of crime in some degree? I don't know. I do not know enough about the law to comment on that. But that was definitely
not international law. I wouldn't have.
Oh, no. Neither national nor international law would be my area of expertise. But that was certainly unfortunate to see right at the end.
Having watched it now, Simon, if I were to ask you to give it a mark out of 10, what would you rate it?
Give it a mark out of 10. I would maybe give it. I'd probably give it a 7 or an 8. Maybe closer to an 8 because it was a fairly original story. I hadn't really seen anything like that, and particularly relevant to today, and the online element and the dating apps element of it all. I'm trying to think of things to criticize it. Well, it was maybe a little, some parts were maybe a little rushed in how they dealt with stuff. Like, again, I go back to the stuff about his enemies, and it I would have been interested to know whether the details he gave on that and how he fleshed out that story, or if he didn't, the documentary, I feel, could have made more of an effort to show us that. It would have also been possibly interesting to know a little bit more about the women's lives outside of their interactions with the Tinder swindler himself. I mean, obviously that's the guts of the documentary, but I feel like we didn't really get much of, like, what they did for a living and their background. We got a little bit with Cecilia at the start, but a bit more of their backgrounds and the types of people they were. And, would have been interesting to get more of like what the people around them were saying and what their friends and family and how they were communicating during it. I suppose, it in a, whatever it was, hour and a half documentary or whatever, certain things are going to get sacrificed in favor of the broader story. So a couple of things there, which it would have been nicer to flesh it out a bit, but like, it was well made and it was an interesting story. And it was, my pet, I wouldn't be the biggest true crime person generally, but so, like,
you were delighted it wasn't really true crime.
well, no, I mean, there's some that I definitely do enjoy, but like my pet peeve with true crime, which I actually think is like a genuinely, like, potentially ethical issue with the genre, is that, like, documentaries being made about cases that are still open or that are it's still up in the air. I'm like, that is so dangerous, because there's inevitably an agenda, there's inevitably a narrative that they're trying to push. And like, the easiest one that calls to mind is kind of the original one, The Making a Murderer, where like that was very clearly pushing a particular side. And then I think we all, going all the way back, had the thing of like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And then we all read loads of stuff online being like, oh, the documentary has omitted loads of details and that whole thing. And what's, you know, the good thing about this one is that the story had ended insofar as those 3 women and that whole thing. He'd gone to prison. So it was a complete story to be told, as opposed to, which I think when you're doing a documentary, when you're telling a true story, is very important, because if you don't know the ending, you start to project one, and that's not a good thing. But that was not the case with the Tinder Swindler. It had an ending, and it was an interesting ending and a thought-provoking ending. So yeah, I'm gonna give it can I go 7.5?
You surely can.
Okay, 7.5.
And do you know what? Your comments kind of reflect my own as well. So I think you're bang on with the mark. Like IMDb gave it 7.2, and IMDb are notoriously hard markers. Like a true crime documentary will never get, you know, more than an 8. I think an 8 is the highest I've ever. So like 7.2 is really, for a true crime documentary on IMDb, is really a 9, I suppose, you know. And then Rotten Tomatoes, which would tend to mark a little bit easier, they were 96%. So I think you're bang on with your market. And it's funny that the points that you made, I completely agreed with as well. I felt like it didn't go enough into the story, but I have found what Netflix are doing recently, and it's funny that you said Making a Murderer, kind of the original, you know, I won't say the original true crime documentary, but I suppose it is the one that has started this renaissance of true crime for our generation, you know, in the last 10 or 15 years. That was 13 episodes long. I don't know if you remember or not. 13 episodes long, and they were like 45 minutes to an hour long each. Like, this will show you. Go back and try and watch that now. I did it maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, and I was like, holy shit, there's so much information. Like, it's just information overload. And Netflix have now, I've noticed over the last couple of years, they've gone from that. And then like last year, it was like 3 episodes and maybe 45 minutes long. And now they've nearly gone back to, you know, it's nearly full circle. We've gone right back to the original of an hour and a half, hour 45, just bang it out in one episode instead of making it into a docuseries. So it's interesting. I think it shows probably how short our attention spans have become, that they've started like cutting them back. But I think they've nearly cut it back too much, to its detriment. I would agree with you that I wanted more information. I wanted more information into his background as well, which might not go down very well. I'm sure most people go, no, fuck it. But that's me. I'm nosy. I'm curious. I want to know what makes him tick, or what happened in his life to, you know, it does a little bit, but I wanted more. I wanted to know more of his background. But yeah, I'd agree with you. A little bit longer, even a half hour, even drag it out to the 2.5 hours. And I think we would have got everything else in. But having said that, I read comments online where people thought it was too long. So you're not going to please everybody.
No, you're not. Until the attention spans get so short that it's true crime TikToks that we are watching, where we just squeeze it all into 60 seconds.
Well, do you know what? Search crime talk on TikTok.
Oh,
and that
God,
is exactly what you will get. It is already a thing. This is what I'm talking about. So our attention spans are so short that we have to cut it down. But yeah, no, I would agree with those remarks. I thought it was a great little documentary, I've got to be honest. And I liked it because it's not too heavy either. The story, the subject matter, it's, you know, true crime by its very nature. It can be very, you know, intense. It can be very draining. It was probably, I know it's probably not the right terminology, it's probably a little bit more entertaining in that regard, a little bit more light in that regard. And what I did like at the end of it as well was that, you know, through it all and through this documentary, that the women were able to recoup a lot of their money, because like they started up a GoFundMe. Because this documentary brought such attention to their case, like they have managed to recoup a lot of their money. Like you said, rightly, it should have been waived anyway, and their, you know, credit ratings should have been reinstated. But at least, look, there's some way to fixing that. Simon Hennessy, I feel like we could have talked all night about this documentary. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. Will you come back on again?
I will, for sure. As soon as they do another true crime documentary where it's an extremely villainous Simon, yeah, who's done something reprehensible, I will most certainly come back and try and defend.
I get it written into the contract, Simon stuff only.
Sounds good. But yes, no, thank you so much for having me. Had a blast.
Not at all. Look, what are you up to this weather? What shows have you got coming up? Plug your socials, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, well, I get oh god, what do I have to plug? I'm doing playing at a festival in the summer, Other Side Festival in Slane on the 8th of July. So I think there's still a few. At time of recording, there are some tickets left. Hopefully, at time of release, hopefully there won't be. But if there are, yes, look it up and grab a few tickets to those. Otherwise, I guess, I don't know, catch me on a stage somewhere in Dublin, hopefully. And if not, it's at Simon Hennessy online, Instagram or TikTok, doing silly videos about various silly things. I
feel a Tinder Swindler one coming on.
Yeah, I might be a little late. But look, better late than never. I'll figure something out.
Simon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
And just like that, another episode done and dusted. So as I always say, guys, if you like what we do over here at What's Up Doc, make sure to show your appreciation. You can head on over to Apple Podcasts where you can give us a rating or a review or both if you're feeling really kind. And also, like, I don't produce additional content on, any platforms like Patreon or that kind of thing. But what I do give you the option of doing, because obviously everything I do provide is free of charge. If you'd like to sponsor us, you can head on over to Patreon and you can buy me a coffee because like most podcasters and especially true crime podcasters, I am fueled by the stuff. But that's it. All done for another week. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. As I always say, good luck, good night. God bless.
Hi, I'm Cherry.
And I'm Morgan, and we host a true crime podcast, Crimepedia, where we investigate unsolved crimes and cold cases from across the world.
We work with law enforcement and victims' families to help spread the word about cases that need more help.
So join us every Tuesday wherever you download your podcasts.
And follow us on social media, just search for Crimepedia.